I can't even finish the first chapter because I can't stop crying. A client asked me yesterday if I have a connection to Islam or why I seem to share a lot of verses from Islam. And she asked me if I just recently picked it up, and I said no, I've always had a connection to Islam and Muslim people. I've always found so much beauty in Muslim people. I've never seen people more beautiful than those who believe in Islam. And I even told her, like, even in my undergrad years, like, I've always been surrounded by a lot of Muslim community without even knowing the reasons why. And I even told her, like, I never really had a connection to a specific religion, but anywhere that I went that held that place of God, I always felt connection. I guess in my adulthood, and I just started to feel, well, I don't even remember when it began. I don't think there was ever really a beginning point. But I do know that I've always felt most, like I feel so much of God's presence in Islam. And it's not even about the religion. Like, I feel God's presence everywhere, obviously. Like, I feel God everywhere. I'm always deeply connected to the divine. And I never even fully read the Quran. I've read certain verses and certain scriptures, but I've never read like the entire book. I've always had the book, but I have never like fully read everything. You know what I mean? And I'm like starting like the first few pages, and I just started crying, and it's like it's so powerful. Even just one word, when I read it, the way it hits me, it feels like my soul is getting gutted, like it's getting cleansed, you know, like I feel like I'm washing myself with the words. Although this is just a book, but it's just when I read the words, it hits me in a way that is just purifying me. It's purifying my soul. And it is so humbling. Like, this feeling, I don't even know how to describe this. Like, you don't feel this feeling anywhere out there when you're like living your life. Like, only when you're connecting to God, you feel this type of energy. And because for me, like, I know that God's energy so well, and I'm always connected to God, when I feel it so directly by absorbing the words of God, it's just hitting me differently. Like, I can't even go through the pages right now because it's like, wow. Another thing that my client mentioned to me yesterday was like, yeah, it's kind of crazy because Islam is, demonized everywhere, and it's so misunderstood. And I guess I never even like looked at it from that angle. I mean, but that is truth, right? It's a religion that is so heavily demonized everywhere. And then, like, as I was reading this, I like connected the dots as to why that is, because life is truly like the battle between God versus man. The man meaning ego, the ego that has not been saved, the ego that has not been transcended, the ego that has not been the recipient of God's grace and mercy. And the ego is destructive, it is self-destructive. And when you just read this, it just hits you in a way where your ego is completely dissolved. And I'm not even sure if the Bible has the same effect. I have never even read the Bible either. I don't really feel connected to the Bible as much as I feel connected to, I guess, Islam. It's like I'm understanding why this religion is so heavily vilified in the West, because if people access these words, the way their souls will be amplified in a way like, when you understand God's presence in life, that's a different type of power. It's not a sense of like having to obey God. It is recognizing how powerful God is, and therefore you naturally surrendering, right? In a way, you're gaining more power that way, because when you surrender, you understand more of your spirit, and that actually gives you more power, because you're learning what it means to follow God's guidance and God's protection, and trusting the process, not trying to make something happen out of your ego, not falling into temptation, not destructing yourself, not destroying yourself because you want something that you're not supposed to have right this second. That is the path of power. And so when people follow that path, right, the West teaches you as though that is, you know, you getting involved in a cult, or you're like becoming like a terrorist or whatever. Like the West brainwashes people into thinking that this religion, or Arabs or brown people or people who follow this religion, are bad people. But why? What is the propaganda behind that? I need you to really think about it, like critically think about why that would be. If you have any objection against Islam or Muslims, what is the reason? What is it? What actually is it? Or have you been brainwashed? I bet these people never even thought about, like, what is it? Like, what is about this religion that is so bad? No, you've been just taught that way. You've been brainwashed. Have you ever come across actual Muslim communities? They're like the most open, accepting, and loving people. And in a way that I feel personally connected to it, because, right, just like how me and my client were talking about, like something that is so misunderstood, but then like once you get to the depths of it, you see so much beauty in that. It's like I personally relate to that because of my personal experiences, right? It's like, I mean, it's not about me. I don't want to make this about myself, but because I've been demonized all my life when I was younger because of my gift and because of how it's different. But then because I have gifts that the human world cannot comprehend. And then like now that I'm like an adult, and then like my client, I get to help clients, I get to help people using my gifts, and these people get to experience the magic of that. So it's like when you don't understand something, you demonize it, right? So I personally have been the recipient of that experience, and so like it's just the whole experience of like being the witness of people demonizing God and God, you know, God's people and the divine experiences. They're demonizing it because they believe in propaganda. They think that obeying God or following God's plan equals like you're believing in something that's outside of you. Like, no, when in reality, it's teaching you that there is something higher than yourself, and that itself is actually safe to trust. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just few words into it, and it's just so humbling directly absorbing God's words. And this is what my clients experience from me sometimes, like, and it's like I'm getting that same experience that I've been telling them how I wish I could experience myself from a different perspective. It's like it's like so powerful that I can see why it's demonized. I can see why the West does not want people to access this book or that religion even.